fans, wherever you may be, welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. Welcome into the show, man.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Good to have you back and everything. I hope everything's doing well with after your procedure. And we had an extra few days. We were originally going to record this on Friday, but the game got not canceled, but postponed. So we postponed recording because we didn't even know who was going to be playing.
Yes.
As of when we were going to record this. And
so we're recording Monday early afternoon, and there's a Monday night games currently scheduled for the Seahawks Rams Tuesday evening, and now there's further implications. In fact, we were just talking about it right before we push record about the COVID-19 implications, the decisions that the leagues made, not only affecting this game, but a couple other games. But I know that you wanted to talk about that. So let's talk about that.
The league just completely screwed over Seattle. And that's exactly what happened.
Not on purpose.
No, they kind of did. Because what they did was they said, okay, the Rams aren't going to be competitive, so we're going to delay this game and give them a chance to get all their players back. And simultaneously, we're going to make the Seahawks play on 4 days rest after this game.
Yes.
So rather than upholding their own policy, there's a memo sent out to the teams from the league office that says, hey, unlike last year, we are not postponing games. If you get into a major problem with COVID, you're going to have to forfeit. They decided to violate their own policy.
That was unvaccinated players.
No,
that policy specifically said unvaccinated in the language.
The policy said that they were not postponing games. It was designed to get players to get vaccinated and not have a huge swath of players that were unvaccinated.
Okay. So tell me in detail what bothers you the most about this situation as it came down and as it's progressed.
What bothers me about this situation is the league came out with language and with a policy and says, we will not postpone games this year. But then one of the teams, an LA team that is, viewed as a playoff team and a potential, big market, but also title contending team, suddenly had this COVID outbreak, and they go, whoa, let's back up. We're going to ignore our own policy and give them an extra 2 days to get healthy. And guess what? A whole bunch of their players have now gotten healthy.
And the Raiders and Browns and the Vikings and Bears were also impacted, as well as the Washington and the Eagles games as well. So we weren't the only one. I'm just going to say we weren't the only teams that were affected.
We weren't the only teams that were affected, but
this was the biggest game.
This was the
biggest contender.
Yes, and they pushed it to Tuesday, right? So they gave the Rams all the days to get all the guys back. And
what would you, in retrospect? Now I'm just going to say, okay, first of all, I'll ask you this. If the roles were reversed, Seattle was affected, Seattle was a playoff contending team, what would you have liked to have seen the league do, given the very similar situation happened to Seattle?
They should have given, if the roles were reversed, what I would have wanted them to see is, because I'm a homer, I would have probably said this, right? Delay the game, give the Seahawks a chance to get guys back. But that's not the point. The point is, what is the right thing to do? And the right thing to do is, if you send out a thing saying our policy this year is that we are not going to postpone games, then you don't postpone games.
I disagree in a little bit.
You find
because
a way
I think
to
that there's that's what I'm going to reach into right there, what you just said. I think things change. I mean, policies are written or typed, and memos are sent out. It's mandated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't adapt, and you can't create a situation or a compromise that tries to work. And I think that's what they genuinely tried to do, because it's hard. The league doesn't want to lose money. You don't want to penalize teams for a whole bunch of players that were trying to do the right thing. All of them vaccinated. All of them. Not one true. That wasn't. Not one of them on the Rams list.
That's not true.
To my knowledge, is unvaccinated.
No, go look at the policy and how long people are out for. There are a bunch of those players that were out because they're out for longer because they're unvaccinated, and they're the only ones that are still out.
I have not heard that. Okay, so
all the players that were vaccinated are now back. They're now eligible to return, and they're back. They had 26 players, and now they've got 11 on the list because everyone else got vaccinated or got activated today.
So mid-season change in a policy that benefited a team.
Mid-season change in a policy that did not.
It also
get announced.
It also benefits the league because you still have all the games being played without weird asterisk crap going on. I'm just devil's advocate here. So everyone gets to play eventually. Yes, it did impact the Seahawks. The Seahawks ended up having 6 players come up on the list. We had 2 last week that would have been impacted anyway, and they remain on the list. And 4 others appeared on the list since the game now has been delayed.
That would have played on Sunday,
but we don't know for sure if any of those
4 starters.
We don't know, and it's a crapshoot who gets on COVID lists. We don't know for sure at this point, Monday afternoon at noon, when we're recording, whether any of those players will come back. We don't know if any other players will be added. We just don't. Now,
you're right.
The same with the Rams. The Rams could add players. They could subtract players. I don't know. Here's the deal. We're playing Tuesday night.
They're playing Tuesday night. They're playing a game, and then they play again 4 days later.
Yes.
In a situation,
that's a tough deal, but it's not like it's players play Sunday and then play Thursday. So the
Seahawks already did that. Every team
we already did that. I get that. And we play some teams play Monday and then play Sunday.
Sucks,
so this
and nobody wants to do it.
This is one more game in addition to like a Monday and then rest. This is a Tuesday and rest.
Every team has to.
Here's the situation. The Seahawks have 2%
for a second. Will you let me finish for a second? Because you've been talking over me. So every single team has to do the Sunday to Thursday, the 4-day rest thing once. And it sucks. And every player hates it. Every coach hates it. Everyone speaks out against it. And they said it's bullshit and we should never have to do this. And nobody ever wants to do it. And then now, because the Rams couldn't take care of their own business, they couldn't be bothered to keep guys out of clubs and doing what they need to do to stay healthy. They couldn't get guys to wear masks during meetings. They couldn't do their thing because the Rams didn't follow the necessary protocols to keep an outbreak from attacking their entire locker room. Now the Seahawks have to do it again. They have to deal with this crap of playing on 4 days rest, which every single one of them hates and everything single one of them says is a complete bullshit that it even exists in the NFL. They have to do it a second time. And how many other teams have to do it a second time? One other set of teams has to do it a second time. And that other the team that also got screwed over by it in that one because it got pushed back against what they did is also speaking out and saying it's complete and utter bullshit that they have to do it. It isn't just write it off as a nothing thing. It's
not a nothing thing. I'm just saying here we are.
At least when you get a Thursday night game, both teams are going into the Thursday night game on 4 days rest, where they are both not practiced, both having essentially no game plan, both with guys seriously banged up and not have enough time to fully heal and get ready. What's going to happen next week is that the Seahawks
literally a luck of the draw or an unluck of the draw situation for Seattle.
But it's not.
It could have been any team. It could have been any team that was facing the Rams this week.
It doesn't matter. It isn't the luck of the draw. It is a league decision that said we value the Rams getting this win more than any kind of competitive balance. That's the problem. They cared more about making sure the Rams had an opportunity to get that win.
I think it's a slightly bigger picture than that, but your point is valid, Keith. Because your points are absolutely valid. All of them. Everything that you've said is completely valid. But they're also completely irrelevant in a sense, in that this game is going to go on. Life's going to go on. The league's going to, the standings are going to count at the end of the year. This game's going to get played. We're going to play next Sunday. The Rams will also play next Sunday.
It should have been played exactly as the policy that was written and issued to teams ahead of time said, that the game was going to be played. And if the Rams couldn't field a team, then they're going to forfeit. But what they could have done and what they should have done is open up and say, you know what? Every single member of your practice squad is available to you, so that way you can field a team. We're going to give you roster exemptions for other players, those that are on your quote unquote shadow roster, those that bounce on and off your practice squad all season, depending on matchups and what you need for your scout team. All of those players are going to be available to you too. So that way you can get, the guys that are on your roster plus 14 other guys that you can get up and get on your roster and get out there to play so that you can field a team. That's what should have happened. That's what the league indicated that was likely to happen when they said, we're not rescheduling games, you're going to have to forfeit. What they also said was maybe not the forfeit part.
The only thing that gives me a little bit of solace in this is that the Players Association and the league came together on this particular policy. I think it was early on that the Player Association was advocating for this as well. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect. Obviously not. And obviously it is weighted as ideal as the league tries to make things, and even as they do. And it's, when you're dealing with 32 markets, 32 teams, it's not always going to be perfect. But I think overall the league does try to be fair. They create policies that are equitable, et cetera. This is definitely a situation that is completely unique.
It's not completely unique.
It is completely unique.
Because you only have to look back to last year.
And it's not just affecting this game and these two teams.
This is a situation. Hold on, Keith. They postponed games for certain teams, and they didn't. They refused to postpone games for other teams.
But things adapt. Okay.
No.
So here's the situation.
This is exactly the same. This isn't them adapting. This is them not changing when they said they
over
did.
130 players were out at some point this week and continue to be out and coming back in and so forth from COVID-19. And this situation is impacting lots of games, lots of starters, lots of key players in and out this week. This game tonight against the Bears are ravaged. They have 20 players on the COVID list. This game is not being postponed. Hold on, Keith. Let me make a point. The betting line.
It's not being postponed. Despite
I understand.
Everyone, the Bears still have to play. Why don't the Rams?
Right.
Go back to last year. They postponed games for certain teams, and other teams they said, screw you.
My point is
anyway.
We're not the only team getting screwed.
And my point is, the reason why the Seahawks are being screwed is because the league is not following policy. They are not being consistent. They are not doing what they should be doing.
I agree.
If they were being consistent and following their policy and then the Seahawks got screwed, fine. But they don't care. They don't care the Seahawks get screwed.
It's a money-driven league, Keith.
It's a competition-driven league. Yeah, it's about money, but the league makes money because of the competitive balance, because of the things that they've set up, because of the fact that there's a certain amount of, you know what, even if you're a small market team like Cleveland, if you're good, and that's what matters.
Right, and on the whole, I think they do a great job at that.
But they don't.
On the whole.
They've never done a good job about that. They have never once in the history of this league done a good job about that. That's the problem. Go back to when the Seahawks were great in 2013 and 2014, and they played nine in 1 year. They played nine teams that were coming off their bye. You think that wasn't intentional? Of course it was intentional. Go back to when Vinny Testaverde's helmet counted as a football for a touchdown, which kept Seattle out of the playoffs.
Listen, we're dealing with human beings.
It let the New York team get in. You think it doesn't matter? There are countless examples.
Sure.
How many
this happens
how many
not in
hundreds of calls does Tom Brady
in
get
a vacuum, Keith? This is not just happening to Seattle.
No, it's not.
It happens to different teams at different times because we are human. We are dealing with people in a human league that are operated by humans that make stupid mistakes. And we try to correct those and overcome those over time. For me, I'm just more of an optimist. I don't see it like as everyone's coming down on a particular situation or a particular team to punish.
No, that's the thing is they're
not also,
here.
I don't believe, hold on, Keith, let me finish. I also don't believe that the league is trying to lift up certain teams to elevate them because they don't need to be elevated. They're already good. Like they're not trying to do such an overarching favor to the Rams that it's just crazy. But they're just trying to field the team so they don't lose a game. So fans that have made travel plans can still go and can, there's a lot more to it than just
pushing it back 2 games. Everyone that made travel plans had their travel plans screwed.
Right, but they had an opportunity to adjust. I mean,
nobody has an opportunity to adjust from
at least they had an opportunity. They had an opportunity to sell tickets. All that kind of stuff. What I'm saying, Keith, is that everyone's trying. It's not a perfect situation. It was never going to be perfect. Even if they tried to play the game, the Rams would have felt like, oh my God, we got overwhelmed by a situation that was out of our control. And we had to forfeit a game because things just got out of hand league wide. It wasn't just us. There were over 100 teams.
It was 3 teams.
Or 100 players. There was over 130 players that were impacted.
You've got 2 or 3 here and 3 or 4 there. And then you have 3 teams that didn't take standard safety protocols during their meetings that ended up with a whole bunch of teams. And of those 3 teams, they were okay postponing a couple of games to help certain teams, but not okay with postponing.
I think that you would have seen
Bears.
I think that you would have seen if the same thing would have happened to Seattle, where Seattle had the Rams roster, but Seattle still had its record. I think that you would probably have seen that same scenario play out. I don't think that the league would have overlooked that and said, "Oh, Seattle, you're screwed. You're going to forfeit."
Then
I don't think that would have happened. I really don't.
Then explain the Bears.
The Bears are losing players currently right now. After it's already the schedule's already. They haven't announced for sure that the game isn't postponed, but it looks like it's going to be played, and they're going to have a serious deficit. Schefter may not even be able to play.
Schefter came out today and says, no, this game's not being postponed. So they'll postpone it for some teams, but not for others. It's the same thing they did last year when they postponed some games for certain teams, but refused to postpone others.
And the worst part about this game last night is the betting line, and I don't pay too much attention to that, but the betting line went from 3 to 6.5 point favorites for the Vikings in this game because of this outbreak.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts really kind of impacting money in the league and all that kind of stuff. So
they will postpone games for some teams, but not for others. They say, what,
now that we know that, does that change your opinion on the NFL and the sports? I mean, you sound like you're angry.
I've been frustrated with this forever, and I'm never not going to be frustrated with it because the NFL does this. They did it. They're doing it now. They did it last year. They do it every year. Go look at just go watch games and chart penalties. Right? Certain teams get every call and other teams just don't. You've seen it. I've seen it. And it's not it's what we think. And, it seems to be that way. You go look at roughing the passer calls. The fact that the Seahawks actually got a couple roughing the passer calls against the 49ers was crazy because in terms of hits and the percentage of hits where a roughing the passer call is given on Russell Wilson is about 1/4 what it is for other certain named
like Aaron Rodgers, for example.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, there's a whole pile of them. Phillip Rivers was that way. They would always get the call. And
why do you think that is?
Why do you think that is? Because certain teams and certain players move the needle.
Why didn't Russell Wilson move the needle?
Because he plays for Seattle.
I don't get it. Why would that make a difference? Why would Seattle, like a Super Bowl winner, a finalist in 2014, 15, be penalized in such a way on purpose by a league that's trying to be vindictive in some way?
No. You're doing it backwards. It isn't they're trying to punish Russell Wilson and Seattle. They're just not giving Russell Wilson and Seattle the Aaron Rodgers treatment, where certain players are given, I don't know, call it the Michael Jordan rule, where he could take extra steps and do all sorts of things and not get calls. And if anyone breathed on him, they were called for a penalty. Like there are certain players that play for certain teams that are given, the rules are just different for them.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for Rodgers for a long time. It's been that way for Brady his entire career. It's been that way for Ben Roethlisberger his entire career. And yet you get other players that play for smaller market teams like Russell Wilson and Cam Newton that have never gotten those calls. And it isn't vindictive where they're trying to punish or keep down those other teams. They just refuse to help them in the same way. The rules are different for certain teams. The rules are different for the Rams, who get their game postponed when they have a COVID outbreak, but not for the Seahawks, who now have to deal with a bunch of starters out that wouldn't have been, and a game on short rest against a fully rested team.
Let's shift the conversation. Thank you for making those positions known, because I think it's really important. And I'm sorry I talked over you earlier. I was amped up too. But for me, I just try to see things as balanced, as equal as I can, because it's hard for me because I don't want to see what you're seeing, just to be completely honest. And I'm not trying to put a blinder over my own eyes, and I'm not trying to be oblivious. I really am not. I'm just trying to be as thoughtful about the process as possible and think of other ways that maybe those things occur for other reasons than that. And I think so it's hard because I don't want to be biased in a situation where ultimately too Seattle's benefited from a few things over the years. And I just see it balanced out over time. And it's hard being in a single market where you follow a single team and you see every single play that goes for you and against you for life. And you remember those really hard calls and the non-calls and all that kind of stuff. And you don't see the action from every other team, every play all the time. So it's hard to know how that impact is really leveled out over the entire league. And so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I hear that part. I'm just saying that and I understand you're wanting to not see it and trying to be positive about it, but you cannot argue with the fact that the NFL went out of its way to help a couple of playoff teams.
It did.
And the Rams and the Cleveland.
Absolutely.
And they refuse to make the same concession for the Bears. And they did the same exact thing last year. The bigger market teams, for the most part, and specifically the teams that were competing for a playoff spot, got more concessions. They got more leeway. They got more benefit of the doubt than other teams did. And the league has consistently violated its own policy as written and distributed to teams in order to help certain teams, and then leaned on that policy to not help others.
So let's talk about this game. Seahawks at Rams, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
You have a list of COVID-19 impact players, and I do, and we're not matching up. The Rams are getting healthier. The Seahawks are being impacted now. We've got a total of 6 players. Let's talk about Seattle's players. DJ Reed, Brandon Shell, Travis Homer, Kerry Hyder, Tyler Lockett, Alex Collins, all on the COVID-19 list. Alex Collins and Tyler Lockett have been on there the longest. We haven't heard any word, at least at the time of recording, that any of those players are expected back or have one negative test and need one more. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, or if these guys are not available. What is your word right now as to where we stand?
Well, so the Seahawks are the league's most vaccinated team. I think they had one player that was unvaccinated, and it was someone who had some other health stuff going on, and that's why they weren't at the start of the year. So every single one of Seattle's players that have tested positive for that are
double vaccinated.
Yeah, they're fully vaccinated, so they're in that part of the protocol where if they're on the COVID list because of close contact, they need a negative test and they can play. And if they're on the positive test because of they tested positive, then it's a certain number of days or 2 negative tests. And that part still is coming out as to why certain players. I know that Lockett, for instance, tested positive, but he is vaccinated. So if he can, he's also asymptomatic. So if he can end up testing negative, then he can get through it. Part of the 2 negative test part is because there have been some false positives, and they didn't want there to be false negatives. So since he's asymptomatic, if he gets tested and it's positive, they go, okay, that might have been a false positive. So if he can get 2 negative tests.
Yeah, I understand that Alex Collins and Tyler Lockett did have symptoms early as well in the process. I don't know if they currently have symptoms, but that's why they went to the team in the first place, ended up having the negative or the positive test and then out.
Yeah,
the two players that I'm looking at, though, that on the Seahawks that are going to impact this the most are DJ Reed and Tyler Lockett, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's their
the other players,
and their best
Brandon Shell hasn't played for a few weeks. He might not have played anyway. Travis Homer has minimum impact. Kerry Hyder's a role player.
And he's been hurt with the
Alex
injury.
Collins also has been now replaced by Penny as far as the primary back as well. And then we've got Adrian Peterson available.
Yeah. So it comes down to it's really those 2 guys, because it's their best corner. And a guy, this team that's been bad at corner, with the exception of him at times this year.
Going against a pretty decent receiving core.
Yeah, and
Los Angeles.
And they've also lost Trey Brown, who was the other starter. So they're down 1 starter now. They're going to be down 2. They don't have a second corner that's starter caliber on the roster. So losing him would be terrible. And then Lockett has been the most steady, stable contributor on this
somebody
roster.
else would have to definitely step up. Freddie Swain would have to step up.
Freddie Swain is also on the list.
Tyler No, I didn't see that. Really? Did he just get added?
No, he is on. I guess no, he was on the injury report, but he was back to a full participation.
A guy like DK Metcalf that has just has hit a hit and miss season. He's doing okay, but you would love to be able to see him have a big game in a game like this.
He was. So this is what happened. This is Lockett was out because of being on the COVID list. Metcalf with a foot injury that he's battled all year was limited participation on Sunday. D. Eskridge was a limited participation earlier in the week. It looked like he was a full participant. Right. And then Freddie Swain was a limited participant. Pretty much, if you were a wide receiver around Seattle, you did not participate this week.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Makes it hard for them to prep for a game.
So here we are, though. The season's kind of, I mean, we have 538.com listed us as having a 2% chance. I want to talk about the playoffs really quick.
I thought it was playoffs 3%.
It was until this weekend.
Oh, it was until they delayed the game and gave the Rams all their players back. Got
exactly.
it. Check.
There you go. So the current playoff standings: Packers are 11-3, Rams 9-4. That's the first five. Let's look at the wild card. So doesn't it even really matter at this point? Seattle sits at 5-8. They need at least 3 of these 6 and 7 teams to lose 2 games. You know. Minnesota's ahead of us. They beat us. Washington's ahead of us. New Orleans ahead of us. Those teams, even if we had identical records, would still be one up on us.
Unless it was a 3-way tie.
Right. So it's going to be tough regardless.
In a 2-way tie situation, that would be true. In a 3-way tie situation, the rules are different. The Seahawks are 1 game back. They're 1 game out of that last spot. And yeah, they have to pass a bunch of teams to get there. So that 1 game is a big deal. And yeah, a bunch of those teams they have to pass also have a tiebreaker. So that 1 game is an even bigger deal.
Yeah.
But they're 1 game back. Every game matters. They cannot lose a game. They cannot lose this game. And they're going to go into this game without their most productive player on offense, without their best corner, and then they have to, even if they do get through this game, they've then got to go and play on 4 days rest against a fully rested, healthy team.
Yeah. Here's the situation.
They've essentially created an impossible gauntlet.
Yes. Right.
For themselves with the losses earlier.
Yes,
and the league
course.
hasn't done it. The league has done them 0 favors.
Yeah, 0 favors, but man, they needed a ton of favors, dude. That didn't make any difference, really. Let's just be serious.
The thing is,
we had a less than 5% chance, Keith. I mean, that's 95% chance we're not going to make the playoffs. We're not going anywhere. If we made the playoffs, we probably wouldn't be going anywhere. We just don't have a roster to compete.
If they hadn't moved this game, the Seahawks would be walking into a game that should be a fairly easy win.
Yes, but also the Cardinals walked into the Lions and got torn up this weekend. I mean, a lot of teams are walking into games that they should be winning and not. So right? We could still win this game. The Rams could be completely distracted. Seattle's hyper-focused. Pete's got them, in playoff mode this year, no matter what anyway, because that's just the way they are in December. We could go in and take this game. I mean, it's one of those. It's to me. I just love football. I'm anxious to watch the game. I want to see good players, good play out of the team that we field. If Tyler Lockett's not out there and Alex Collins and DJ Reed's, let's let somebody else step up. We talked about that earlier. Anyway, this is the time of the year that we wanted to see other players have opportunities. Let's see what Eskridge is about. Let's see if Eskridge can have 7 or 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown.
Except for he didn't practice most of the week. So,
but nonetheless, if he's going to be in the lineup, he's going to be able to play. So let's let him have an opportunity. Okay. What else are we going to do? Somebody's got to step up. Let's see if he steps up.
No, of course. So, they just this game had right. So just look at it in just the wide receiver versus defensive back setting. because the game got pushed back, the Rams got Jalen Ramsey back, who's probably the best corner in the league.
Yeah.
And Seattle lost Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
So it went from being major advantage Seattle to major advantage LA.
Right.
Because of the delay.
Yes. But what are you going to do? Here's the delay. We're playing Tuesday night. So, I mean, just have to write it off. I mean, I can't worry about the lineups anymore. Now the game's going to get on, or we're going to play. It's going to be on. We're going to have the players that we have. They're going to have the players they have. We're going to play the game. So I'm not worried about the individual matchups anymore. I'm worried about how we perform, how we execute our game plan, what kind of energy we come out with. Are we really still fighting as a team? All that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I'm really interested in this game. All this other stuff, by the time that the kickoff happens, is a complete distraction. And so I'm trying to look forward to the actual kickoff, because at that point, everything else that happened prior to that moment is done. And so it is what it is.
The team just has to, they have to do what they can to try and pull out a win. I am.
And does it even matter? I mean, as far as we win or not, I mean, it seems like the season's over as far as after the regular season. It just does. I don't know that we have like a real chance to get into the playoffs with those teams in front of us. So to me, I think the character of the situation is the most important thing right now. Pete's always done a really good job pulling teams together late in the season. It's hard this year because obviously the record at 5-8 is less than optimal, and he's faced some challenges this year with Russell Wilson being injured and, other things that just didn't work out for whatever reason. We'll have a lot of offseason to analyze that, but it's important to me to see the character of the team, the energy, the fight remaining, the leadership ability of key players, players that maybe we haven't completely seen all of yet that have an opportunity to step up and make plays. I enjoy that aspect of football and the game. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. How about you? What are you looking for in this game?
I don't know. I'm so honestly, I was looking for a lot of things when this game was a Sunday game, and now that it's a Tuesday game,
yeah. You're thinking about doing something else?
No, I'm gonna watch. I just, as far as like, what am I looking for? What am I waiting for? I don't even know, because is you're going into a game where the league has made it very clear they don't want you to win, and so I just don't. I don't know what to watch for. I want to see Jake Curran continue to excel at right tackle, because he's been a really nice addition over there.
Yes, I agree.
He's been a nice upgrade over Shell. So I think the fact that Shell's contract is expiring and they were looking at needing three new starters on the offensive line, I think they can go into next year thinking they need two. And one of which you've got Stone Forsythe, who's looked good when he's gotten a chance to play. I wouldn't depend on him. They need to go get a veteran to compete with him at left tackle, unless you can go get a guaranteed starter. Someone who's like basically Dwayne Brown, but 5 or 6 years younger. Mm-hmm. But you kind of look at this and you're just like, okay, that I want to see him play more. I'd love to see, if Collins can't go because of whatever the reason, we know that Travis Homer is also not going to go.
Yes, let's get Josh Johnson some carries,
or get DJ Dallas more carries. Like, let him actually have some touches that aren't just on kick returns. Yes. Let him do some other things. I want to see Rashad Penny come out and ball out like he has the last, couple of weeks, and really, show that he is finally healthy and finally able to do what we wanted him to do for the last 4 years.
I think that's really important for him. I think it's important for the team if we elect to bring him back like on a 1-year minimum contract, which is possible. But it's important for him, because as a human being, he's gone through a lot. I know that he completely ditched all of his social media because of all the negative impact that it had on his as a person. And I care about that. Like that really, to me, affects me. And I want to make sure that he feels good about himself first and foremost. And then as a football player, he's able to do what he has dreamt about doing all his life. And he's finally reached a point where his body isn't getting in his way. And I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. So I think that when we look at this year and this game, I want to see those guys. I want to see Darrell Taylor and Robinson on the defensive line come in and play well.
Do you know, Keith, that the Seahawks have the second fewest sacks on the season at 21?
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Lowest is the Falcons at 16. Last year we were at about 16 this time of the year. We kind of caught up a little bit, but this year we're at 21. We caught up last year, actually, halfway through the year, and we ended up being one of the larger sack leaders in the league. But this year we have not. We've languished. And, you take a look at that combined with turnovers. This team's just really struggling to make differences and get off the field because they can't get to the quarterback to stop.
Can't get to the quarterback, and they can't turn. They're not turning the other team over, and they're not getting sacks. They're not, and that's how they end up with all of these drives that are like 12 plays in 8 minutes.
Yes,
and that kind of stuff where teams are because they can't get off the field, and so I want to see those kids, turn it loose a little bit more. Dunlap was the guy they brought in that helped really turn around the pass rush last year, and he's been worthless as a whole. Now I don't understand that. He made a couple of really big, important plays against the 49ers with the safety sack and also, batting that ball down on fourth down at the end of the game.
Walk off. Yep.
And so he's made some big plays, but overall, like his stats are terrible. And really they've got, the one guy that they've had that has gotten pressure on the quarterback and gotten sacks has been Darrell Taylor. Like everyone else, Kerry Hyder has not lived up to anything. Rasheem Green has done well at times, but then he takes long stretches where he doesn't do much. Yeah. It's just been the two second year players, the two kids, and nobody else. Yes. And so they're going to go into this offseason looking at, okay, Dunlap's gone. Yes. And, they're once again needing to restock defensive end. Benson Mayowa, of all the wasted roster spots.
Starting strong side linebacker right now.
Right now he is. He started out, he was always a rotational guy on the Leo side.
He has no business being out there more than 40% of the snaps.
He has no business being out there. Why are they playing him?
Well, when he's overutilized, Keith, as we talked about last year, that's what happens.
Well, yeah, but at this point in the year, you're saying, okay, it's over. Let's play kids.
Yes.
He shouldn't be playing. Don't even activate him. Put Robinson over there. I'd rather play him.
Yeah. We activated Tanner Muse, brought him up on the roster. Let's see what Tanner Muse can do.
Yeah. These are the types of things like we need to see some different guys play. I know Benson Mayo is not part of this future.
You and I both know what Pete Carroll is all about. And I guarantee you 150% that Pete Carroll, until he's mathematically eliminated, he's going to do everything he can to put every position player on the field to give himself the best chance to win. And that's what they're doing, you know? And so as soon as that moment happens, I think you'll see quite a transformation on the game day.
And because of the league's stuff is almost certainly going to happen tomorrow.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch, man. You never know. You never know. Seahawks come in, just wipe them out. I would love that. It doesn't happen very often in the NFL, but man, it could happen. Too.
And we see stuff like that kind of happen occasionally. Like you mentioned, Detroit just beating up on Arizona,
Arizona looked awful in that game.
And nobody even in Detroit expected that.
No.
So we'll just
Jared Goff actually looked good. It was crazy.
I know.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? So it can happen. I mean, Seattle can go and just completely wipe them out, and it's be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Because Seattle's been playing better, and
They
so
have been. The last couple of games have been good.
Yeah, I anticipate this being a pretty decent game.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Donald's still a game wrecker, and that's we're gonna have to deal with him. But
he's also been dealing with a sore knee and missed practice for a chunk of the week.
Right. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Do you got a prediction? I know it's hard, but
no.
Just give me a number. Just do it.
4.
4 quarters. We're gonna have 4 quarters of football, folks. That we can promise.
You said a number, not a score.
I'm going to give you a score. I'm
Okay.
going to hold my word here. I'm going to say Seattle's going to come out of this game like 28-17, and they're going to win. And I think that they're going to win because they're a focused team. I think the Rams have been dealing with a lot of stuff this week, and I think that they're distracted. We're going to go in and take something that I think that we were going to win anyway. I think we were going to go in and we were going to take this game on Sunday. We've been playing with a lot of momentum. Russell Wilson's been looking really good. He's been playing within himself, playing within the offense a little bit. Guys have been stepping up. Defense has been playing well. Hasn't been getting to the quarterback, but they've been doing everything else pretty darn good. Haven't letting anything getting past them over the top. Matthew Stafford's been doing an excellent job at that. I think they lead the league in yards per play and all that kind of stuff. He's top 5, this year, no doubt about it. But we'll see what happens. So let's get out of here.
So,
and we're still friends, by the way.
Of course we are. So the Seahawks are 7-point underdogs.
Deservedly so. I think the Rams are a better team regardless of COVID. They just are.
Yeah.
This year.
I'm just looking at, with this game has gone from, well, it depends on where you're looking. This game has gone from Seattle being 7-point underdogs to over the last 24 hours to Seattle being 14.5-point underdogs.
Ooh, not tightening up. 14.5. That's ridiculous. That's an absurd line in NFL football, Keith. Nobody has 14.5. Nobody is giving 14.5 to anybody in this league, hardly ever. So that's I don't even know where that comes from. I mean, if it's larger than 7, I would be astonished.
It comes from Seattle losing their best corner and this year their best receiver, while the Rams have gotten their best corner, their second best corner, and a whole bunch of other players back.
Okay. Let's line them up, see what happens.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to lose by 14.
No, Vegas is saying that pushing the game back cost Seattle in terms of its line 7 points. Like they went from being pretty big underdogs to being.
In tonight's game, it cost the Bears 3.5 points from losing more guys from COVID in this game too. So.
And that might continue to drop right up till kickoff. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
All right. Excellent. Thanks. Yeah. Follow Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk and Northwest Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. SeahawksPlaybook.com has all the content. You can find us in your favorite podcast app. We're everywhere. And then follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Got our own YouTube channel. Look us up at Seahawks Playbook Podcast. And when you find it, subscribe and then share it.
Definitely.
That would be great. So thank you.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you next time. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.